What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Tropical MBA podcast, where we help you build a 6, 7, and 8-figure location-independent businesses. The dust is settling on an incredible week with 35 founders who all have a minimum of $1 million in revenue, and they're doing it location independently. And what I want to share with you today are 7 takeaways. We're going to talk about how they manage their teams, what they're doing personally, how they think about numbers in the business, and a bunch of other things. But I want to start with my number one key takeaway, which is they are using AI as aggressively as they possibly can. And guess what? They are not delegating this. They're not hand-waving at AI. They're not using it for personal stuff or replacing Google or talking to their team about using AI at their own desks. They see it as their own responsibility to figure out how to leverage and innovate with AI. And really, this was the broad theme of the event for me, and the way that these founders are using AI kind of blew my mind. There was a lot going on here, and I got to admit, I have had some challenges personally finding ways to implement AI into my business. And this week's examples really opened the pathways to me. So maybe I can share some examples with you and it'll do the same for you. So I'm just going to go through some. How about this? A founder who has a very large team that monitors all meetings across the company, does sentiment analysis, which are then analyzed by the leadership team, where then you can do employee interventions like on a daily or weekly basis. Here's another company that depends on video editing that has reduced their editing staff by more than half using a combination of Descript's onboard AI and ChatGPT. There's so many examples. If you haven't logged into your Zapier account lately, Zapier is essentially becoming like an AI orchestration platform where you can replace a lot of CRM functions with just basic queries in Zapier and have that all be automated. We heard examples of non-tech teams, like functional area teams, doing hackathons to basically re-prototype the product that they service and then send those winning prototypes back to the development team. We heard an example of letting go high-level professionals, including law firms, where founders discovered fraud and hundreds of thousands of dollars of waste just using their thinking cap, rolling up the sleeves, and auditing law firms and other professionals. We've heard of high-level copywriting being replaced by simply uploading ICP information, so ideal client profile, plus previous successful copywriting efforts, and now the LLM can reproduce that, no need for the high-level consultant. We're hearing declarations from these founders of low-level administrative help is kind of just gone for them. That if they still have EAs, they're struggling to figure out, like virtual VAs or EAs, what they can do anymore, because now their organizations are being transformed, because it's either you're high level now and leveraging AI or you're AI. Here's one example of a customer service team being outperformed by an implementation of intercom using previous customer queries. And it's not just a matter of speed, it is a matter of quality. Yet the AI is actually servicing the clients more successfully. The list is endless. SEO visibility hacks in terms of visibility going away one direction, but now the LLMs are bringing clients in, and here is how we're presenting our message, our brand to the LLMs to bring in ideal clients. It can be a little overwhelming. For me, I'm using AI more and more every single day. Our team's using it. But this idea of getting AI into your business, the theme is it cannot be left to your team. That this is a founder level existential issue for companies going forward. And that's the number one takeaway from this event. If you are not seriously considering how to leverage the latest and greatest in AI and to innovate your business and to open up new opportunities for yourself, you've got time. Because we were in the room with the bleeding edge. Like And I just think it's interesting that these founders, they run 7, 8-figure businesses. They have huge teams and their hands are dirty with this stuff. They are working on it. They're thinking about it seriously. They're hacking up solutions. And it was really inspiring to see. So that's my number 1 takeaway from the event. Number 2 takeaway, financial freedom comes before you hit your number. I would estimate 25% of the people in the room, I didn't do an official poll, are post-economic in conventional terms. And then there's 75% of people who say, yeah, maybe need a little bit more before I could declare myself having shelved financial questions for the rest of my life. We had a wonderful presentation from members who had exited their business for 8 figures, that years before they had the number that they needed to retire on posted on the fridge in the house, and how they thought through that. What was interesting though, as we went around the room, we talked with a bunch of people who had met their number years ago and how they still desired to be challenged. They sometimes wanted more, even though they knew they had enough. Like that desire to go out and to succeed doesn't necessarily go away once you cross a finish line that you set for yourself based on a set of principles. On the other side of it, you go to people who are far off from their number, yet the level of clarity they have around what their next step is and what they're doing was also crystal clear to me and to them as I spoke with them. And so I thought, isn't this a form of financial freedom, that you have a roadmap, that you have your hands on the wheel? And I was impressed by that. And I took that away, that the financial goals of these $1 million plus founders were crystal clear for the most part. And I came across this quote. There's this financial newsletter I read, and they said, bears sound smart and bulls get rich. And it just made me think of this idea that at some point, everybody in the room has to be a bull about something. You have to believe in something. You have to push your chips in, whether it's your own personal education, whether it's the S&P 500, whether it's your personal homestead where you're going to grow vegetables and animals and stuff. Like at some point, all of these folks who have achieved financial freedom have to be bullish about something. You have to believe, you have to push your chips in and say, this is for the next foreseeable what I believe is going to pay off, and I have to put my chips in. You can't just sit on the sidelines and analyze everything and wait for the perfect moment. It's never going to feel perfect. You're going to have to push. Takeaway number 3, you are very rare. If you're listening to this and you've grown $1 million business and you're doing it location independently, you are very rare. If you're listening to this and you're considering doing it for yourself, you are also very rare. It's amazing to feel the energy in the room, just how nice it is to be able to talk like this, to talk with you on the microphone, to talk with each other about this thing that's at the core of our creative and financial life. And if you're curious about doing what we talk about on this show, you could just feel like this isn't something we experience day to day necessarily. And it just feels special to be in the room. So if you do have $1 million business and you fit this profile of doing it location independently and with a strong sense of balance and lifestyle freedom, wow, there's just not many people like that. That's super cool. And if you're curious about doing it, I think it's pretty easy to find yourself around these types of people because it's clear what they want to do. They want to talk about the types of things we talk about on the pod, right? And so if you want to be around these people, skill up in something specific that you know about and share that knowledge with these people. They're very curious. Like I said, they're tinkering with AI. You know, they want to hear about what you vibe coded. They want to hear about how your tool can help pull data into their company, whatever. They're super curious. And number 2, help them out. You know, give them the information for free. Come do a little work for them. Like, it's just rare that people spend their lives building these larger location independent businesses. And if you're not yet running $1 million business, I would just say, don't ask for anything from these people. There's a lot of people asking for things. Just don't find yourself in that camp where you're asking for anything, especially advice. Why not just give? And that's your way in the door. Number 4 takeaway, and this is just my complete biased view, but I think This is the first event that I've hosted where the majority of attendees had families. And I don't know if it's true. It's probably been the case at a few other events, but it's just something I noticed. And so what is the takeaway of this? In terms of internationalization of their business, travel, expatriation, a life full of adventure, they're all still full gas on this stuff. The gearing might be a little lower in some cases. It might be that you're not just going to strap on a backpack and jump into the jungle for 4 weeks on a solo trip as often. But it's interesting and inspiring to see so many people growing these incredible businesses with families and just no lack of adventure or curiosity for the world. So that was a big takeaway. Number 5, the rise of CEOs for location-independent businesses. If you were curious about location-independent businesses in 2014, you might feel like, oh, I'm a couple years after the 4-hour work week, I'm late or whatever. But we're early. And like there's still, more traditional business concepts that are coming into this style of like a larger lifestyle business that appear every year. So Rob Walling was on the podcast a few weeks ago and he talked about, hey, like there wasn't a roadmap to sell small bootstrapped SaaS businesses at high multiples 10 years ago. Like the financial markets just didn't understand it. And so it's interesting to see like when these trends hit. Well, so we had a speech from a $100 million founder who is also an investor who invests in small private businesses. And what they do is they install a CEO. And the interesting thing is they don't install a traditional CEO. So I want to give the profile with the added insight that many DC businesses are now starting to recruit and install CEOs into their companies. And this certainly wasn't as common 5 or 10 years ago when maybe the companies were a little smaller, number one, but number two, there wasn't really that CEO crop that was available to do so. We're not talking like big time CEO salaries with CEOs who are used to big teams and big budgets. We're talking about taking people who maybe failed or had a moderate success with a previous business. Now, we all know there's a lot of luck involved in business. Maybe they didn't pick the right niche. Maybe they didn't have enough runway. Maybe the timing wasn't right, but they're still extremely talented. So if you're listening to this and you're like, well, I'm on the side of the fence where I have not yet built a 7, 8, or 9-figure business, I think becoming a CEO for one of the businesses I was in the room with is actually a really good opportunity to accelerate your career and to launch into your next entrepreneurial venture. I just wanted to point this out because a lot of the members in the room were like, well, can't really afford kind of like a classic CEO, and I don't actually trust them to run this style of business. Well, now we've got 15 years full of operators and founders who may not have hit it out of the park with their first business, who could be really great CEOs. And one of the ways you can do this is bring them in, allow them to buy into the equity of the business, set targets, and run towards your next goal together. So in general, I just want to open the conversation. This was definitely a theme that's going around the room is like, when is my business going to be ready for a CEO? And where am I going to find a CEO for my business? It might be right here in the listenership of the Tropical MBA podcast. Number 6, these entrepreneurs are seriously curious about life in general, and especially topics that others might consider fringe. Whenever I find myself one-on-one, and again, a little bit of self-selection here, but I find people willing to talk about the edges of what's possible in terms of our knowledge or experience in serious ways and in invested ways, whether that's talking about science and technology, whether it's tossing in the odd conversation about aliens or NASA, whether it's talking about some conspiracy theories that may or may not be true, spirituality, consciousness, religion, the meaning of life. I know almost all of us have these curiosities and things that we're deeply interested in that we might not think apply to our core business. I just want to encourage you that when you get into rooms like this, I find that they're very open spaces to talk to intelligent, curious people that are willing to talk about things that they don't know for sure, but they're curious about and they're poking around and they're exploring. So it's a great way to connect with people. And if you find yourself, I don't know, deep diving, reading 100 books about aliens one year and you're not really sure why, or doing the same thing about spirituality and meditation and consciousness, know that when you find yourself in these rooms with people that are doing incredible things with their lives, often they have a deep passion for these kinds of unique and fringe topics. Number 7, a complete obsession. Well, maybe not a complete obsession, but at least a true competence and understanding of their metrics. Certain founders have a hard time sort of explaining what they do. And then you go to the next level and maybe they're not exactly sure what their targets are or where they're going for it. I don't find that in this room. But when it comes to the business, it's pretty clear what our targets are. It's pretty clear how far we are away from them. And I think this is a real value because sometimes our journey to get where we've gotten with our business is a very long one and a very personal one as a founder. But how are you going to communicate that to others that haven't been on the same journey as you and might not even meet you in real life ever? Right? You do it via metrics. It's a simple, clear way to translate your vision as a founder onto your team, your investors, your stakeholders. And so where are we going right now? What is our key metric? What are we optimizing for? How close are we? Just nailing those metrics. And so one thing I wanted to put on the plate of the listeners is this concept we had a big conversation about at the event. Do you have a North Star metric in your business right now? If you disagree with a North Star metric, choose your own metric that's not revenue. So this is my challenge to the listenership. So revenue is a trailing metric, okay? It is a scoreboard. It tells you how you did that quarter or that year. But what about the playbook? What measures your playbook that lets your team know that scoreboard is going to look good in 3 months or 12 months? And that's the concept of a North Star metric. Because if you're like, man, we don't really run off of metrics, or like my accountant sends me a thing every month, but yeah, maybe I'm not so quick with a number or communicating that to my team. So how you come up with a North Star metric, and it can be quite difficult. It is the single most important metric that captures the core value that your product or service delivers to customers that drives sustainable business growth. So some examples is like YouTube tracks listening time, or YouTube tracks watch time. Imagine yourself on the YouTube team and you're trying to figure out how to make a decision. Well, do you make a decision based on revenue, which is the scoreboard, or the playbook, which is to get people to watch longer? The basic idea is that if people are watching videos longer, we're going to be able to realize that value they're receiving in revenue down the line. This also leads to sustainability and potential innovation. Because if you just optimize for revenue, you can kind of do cheap tricks to get it, right? You can do like price slashes, you can run promotions, you can do high pressure sales tactics, but all those things when you're optimizing for revenue don't necessarily align value with your clients. So here's a case study that Matt Lerner had in his book, Growth Levers. So when PayPal asked Matt, this is back in 2009, to find a way to make PayPal as profitable as possible, he found a way to go out and get 30 million more in revenue for PayPal. It's kind of a drop in the bucket for them at that time, but was essentially like a short-term fix where an appropriate North Star metric for PayPal might have been total payment volume. Because what you really need for like a platform payment processor is ubiquity, or being everywhere. So if they were optimizing for total payment volume, perhaps they wouldn't have lost the arms race to Braintree and ultimately Stripe. So this is kind of an idea. You don't have to have a North Star metric. If, for example, you're currently having a challenge in your business, you could elect to unlock a constraint by identifying a one metric that matters. Our core problem in our business right now is getting more clients. The number one way we get clients is by our current clients mentioning it to other people for whom it would be good for. The problem is we don't have enough referrals. So maybe the key unlock or constraint in your business is putting that one metric that matters in front of your whole team and saying, we are optimizing for referrals. So when we are delivering our service to clients, we are doing so in a way that makes us remarkable, that makes us mentionable to others, that maybe incentivizes our customers or digs into that emotional incentivization that would allow them to more readily talk about our service to other people for whom it could be relevant. So whether it's a North Star aligning your playbook and your value generation with your clients, or a one metric that matters, unlocking that key constraint, it's like, what are you guys as a team, what is your team looking at every single day as something that they can optimize for? That's not revenue, because revenue can be disempowering for anybody but the finance team and the sales team, right? For the rest of the company, it's like, what are we doing here? Well, we're trying to be referable. That's our current quarterly aim. If you don't currently know your metrics or have a simple, clarified metric for your team, that's a clear takeaway that you could take from these incredible entrepreneurs in this room, which is, let's have a number we can put in front of our team that will keep us aligned, motivated, and driven on a daily basis. All right, cool. So that was my 7 quick takeaways from the event. I've got probably a bunch more, but the dust is still settling here in my brain. One of the things I just wanted to say at a very top level, if you're thinking, wow, there's a lot of different directions I could take this episode, is we give everybody a worksheet when they come to the event that's multiple pages, that solicits answers from them that will drive the conversation throughout the weekend. And the first question is, what is your core challenge or constraint right now? And how could somebody in this room help you get through that core challenge or constraint? And I'll tell you what, everybody has a clear answer. And I think that maybe is the meta takeaway, which is, can you successfully communicate what is holding you back right now? And then can you take the next step to find somebody to help you break through it? I saw clarity around that. I saw openness, cooperation, and humility. Like, I run a business that has 80 employees. I'm post-economic, but I'm coming here asking for help about this specific thing. Can you help me? I'm willing to help you too. And that's something that all of us can learn from, no matter where we're at in our business journey. So I'll leave you with that. Thanking you for listening to the Tropical MBA podcast. We'll see you next week, as always.